What is up, everybody? Welcome into episode 9 of I'll Say This with Chris Castellani. I am your host, Chris Castellani. Got two big topics to discuss. One, rather tragic. I do want to talk about Dwayne Haskins and some of the reactions to the passing of Dwayne Haskins. And, of course, we're going to talk a lot of Tiger stuff. Nothing else really of note happened in Detroit sports that I wanted to discuss. But before we get into our first topic, which will be the unfortunate, tragic passing of Dwayne Haskins, I just want to give a little thank you for, obviously, the reception to episode 8 I thought was excellent. I think that was the best show we've done so far. Matt did a great job. And to the people I saw at the ballpark on opening day and the people who reacted to the video I put out on opening day, it was theater, man. It was just an amazing day. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. I'm going to get passionate, as I always do. I'm going to get passionate, maybe a little angry, maybe, about this team and where they went and the reactions by the fan base. But opening day was perfect, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But just thank you so much to the people I ran into, the people I was able to party with, because Castellani was feeling pretty good after Javier Baez walked them off on Friday. So we're going to discuss all that in full, but we are going to start with the shocking passing of Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins, a former standout quarterback at Ohio State, played in the NFL. I was actually still in the NFL back now with the Pittsburgh Steelers, was with the Washington football team to start his career, died on Saturday morning. I believe the report that I read was that he was running and just horrible luck. Got hit by a dump truck and passed away at the age of 24. Heartbreaking, terrible. The guy, I remember him at Ohio State. He was an incredible talent. And I do want to talk about the reactions, because there were multiple reactions that some people got really mad about. One was Gil Brandt, who's some 90-year-old. And look, age is wisdom, I understand it, but made some comments about Dwayne Haskins that were completely insensitive and stupid, and he's getting, his feet are over the coals for it, as they should be. But the bigger one, the one that people really paid attention to, was the person who broke the news. Adam Schefter sent out a tweet that many people believed was pretty insensitive towards Dwayne Haskins, which basically said, quarterback from Ohio State, struggled a lot in his time in Washington as their starting quarterback. He was a top 10 pick, passed away at the age of 24. And a lot of people said, what are you doing? Just say he passed away. We don't need your opinion. We don't need your thoughts. This is a time of mourning. Just break the news. Okay? Just say that he's no longer with us. I'm not going to spend my time here ripping Adam Schefter, because the internet's done that. And I will come to his defense for half a second. It's a minor defense. I don't believe that when he was typing out that tweet, he went, And Schefter also is a University of Michigan grad, but he can't be that stupid. And I'm just, for the sake of my sanity, I'm going to choose to believe he's not. I don't think as he was writing that tweet, he was like, oh man, boy, I can't wait to write about this guy, this bust. No, I just think it was stupid and really, really awfully poorly worded. But as is often the case with the internet, is that we take one instance, one bad mistake, one person, and we pile on them as if they're the only person who's capable of doing something dumb, when in reality, what Adam Schefter did and what Gil Brandt did are issues that are indicative of our entire culture, which is that we do a really terrible job with reacting to death, and we do an even worse job with reacting to the deaths of athletes. Because when you really break down the life of an athlete, the professional life of an athlete, especially in the NFL, the average NFL career, like if you were just a so-so player, an average player, you will retire before the age of 30. And there are iconic players. Recently, Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, guys, two standouts for the Lions, Hall of Famers, retired very young, barely even 30, gone, out of the league. Right? And we have this problem where we value somebody's life and we take somebody's life's accomplishments and solely base them around what they did on an NFL field or a basketball court or a baseball field. Look, Dwayne Haskins, in terms of success stories, is at the very, very top of the iceberg when you're talking about football players. No, of course he wasn't Pat Mahomes. Dude was a monster in high school in a year in which he was supposed to be the bridge guy between J.T. Barrett and Justin Fields at Ohio State. Dude broke every single passing record they ever have, broke my heart against Michigan in 2018, played one of the best games I've ever seen by a college quarterback, got drafted top 10 in the NFL, but because he stumbled a little bit in the NFL, people look at his life and they look at his professional career and they say, oh man, what a disappointment. How in the world is that a disappointment? This guy got as close to got to the summit of the football world, and people still go, oh, well, he could have done more, and perhaps he would have. He was 24 years old, but I think that this happens way too often where all we do is we just look at what they did professionally, and that's how we value their lives. The saddest part of this whole thing is not the fact that maybe Dwayne Haskins would have come back and been some great NFL quarterback. The saddest part is the fact that you got the impression he was finally figuring his life out, and he got ripped. Oh my goodness, was it? I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Booger McFarland. Did this whole piece about how like Dwayne Haskins was a disappointment in the NFL because black quarterbacks like don't manage their time. It was some ridiculous segment. Like, what are you talking about? He didn't have a very successful stint in Washington, and he was trying to find it again. So many people are under this belief that progression in life is linear, that every person has the same path. I don't know if I've found it yet in my life, if I figured it out, whatever it is. Some people don't figure themselves out until they're 30, 40, 50 years old. And when you're talking about a guy in the public eye who got ridiculed for simply underperforming as a quarterback and said, you know what, I'm owning up to that, and I'm going to try to be the best version of myself. And that's what makes this so tragic, is you felt like he was trying to come back again and could have done something. But regardless of whether or not he did, the saddest part is what he would have done beyond football. I feel like we stop caring about people sometimes when they leave, their profession. Who knows what kind of coach or husband or father this guy could have been. And so, I don't know. I think it's one of the big reasons why the Kobe Bryant's death hit people so hard, is that you obviously had Kobe Bryant, who was this legend in the NBA, but was a very intelligent human being as well, and won an Academy Award, and one of those guys that you felt like had so much more to offer in life than just basketball, and then he was gone way too soon. You feel the same way about somebody like Dwayne Haskins, and for 24 years old, who cares what he did in Washington, really? For 24 years old, that is, to me, an incredibly successful life. And as is often the case, and I'm glad this is the case, you saw a lot of very touching tributes by people, opposing players, coaches, talking this guy up. And for every knucklehead, there was hundreds upon hundreds of people. Even, there's a lot of Michigan fans that I follow who are as biased as it gets, who were making some very touching, very kind tributes towards Dwayne Haskins. So way too young to die at the age of 24, but obviously rest in peace, and my condolences to his family and his friends for what is a really, really horrible tragedy. All right, let's get into a little bit of Tigers talk. Actually, it'll probably be a lot of Tigers talk. Tigers go 1-2 to begin their season at home against the best team in the American League Central, the Chicago White Sox. I know last year was a nice little surprise season for the Tigers, and I know that there were people, myself included, who felt like the White Sox, despite running away with the division, maybe could have had a better year considering the talent on the roster. But we're talking about one team that was 16 games better than the other. The Chicago White Sox are really good, even with kind of the lack of spending and with the plethora of injuries that they have. An incredibly talented roster, and obviously you have the biggest Tiger killer of this current generation, Tim Anderson, leading the way, batting leadoff for them. So really talented core. Always, I enjoy watching them. I really do. Opening day was amazing. Opening day was absolutely incredible. That was like something out of a movie. You could not have scripted it any better, with the Haas home run to tie it, and then obviously the wacky walk-off by Javier Baez, and I don't apologize for my reaction. I wrote about it in my blog, and I understand it's irrational. It is completely ridiculous to react that passionately after game one of a 162-game season when you don't know how things are going to go. I just don't care. Like, I really think that's so dumb on the internet when you see a person. Now, if you think somebody's being phony, sure. But when you see a person genuinely, authentically happy and the internet just doesn't like it, like how How miserable is your life that you see somebody else's happiness and you just want to dump all over it? Can't stand it. I think it's really, really lame. But with all of that said, 99% of the feedback from that video and my reacting to it was amazing. And that's a result of the fact that Tigers fans, so many of them are like me. They just want to see this team be good and be successful and make a run. And that was an incredible game. The opening day does feel like a playoff game every year because of the crowd, because of the weather, because of the atmosphere. So it was really an enjoyable experience. I wrote it in my blog, the most fun I've ever had watching baseball. And of course you get the responses that say like, well, what about this game? Or, oh man, I guess your expectations are just low. Yes, they are low. They lost 114 games 3 years ago. They're at the bottom of the barrel. I have not seen good baseball here in a pretty long time. We had a nice little stretch in the latter part of last season, but let's not kid ourselves. It's been a minute since we've seen like really good, really awesome moments at Comerica Park. And opening day, Comerica Park in 2022, absolutely, it was perfection. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Now the Tigers then proceeded to get their teeth kicked in over the next 2 games. Game 2, nothing about that bothered me. Mize, there will be question marks with him. 5+ innings, 4 runs, really that one pitch over the plate to Grandal that he crushed for the 2-run shot. But they tried to rally. They weren't sloppy. Mize wasn't very good, but the bullpen was solid for the most part. That was one of those games where they faced a better team and they lost to a better team. Now, the same thing happened on Sunday, but Sunday bothered me more because they were so sloppy. I said it in my postgame video. Man, oh man, they made so many mistakes, and Tarek Skubal was awful. And I'm going to be harder on Tarek Skubal this year than any other pitcher on this staff. Because I don't know, I'm difficult on the ones I love. I'm like Fletcher from Whiplash. I push people beyond what's expected of them. Kidding, obviously. Guy doesn't know who I am. I hope he doesn't, quite frankly. Though I'm sure he's lovely, and I hope he's successful. But I've watched him in spring the last couple years, and I know somewhere in this guy is an elite Cy Young caliber pitcher. And I'm probably going to be the last person banging that drum, but I'm telling you, I know it's there. I don't think it's there with Mize. I think Mize is going to be a good pitcher at the major league level. I don't see multi-time Cy Young winner, perennial all-star. Good pitcher. I think the ceiling is probably higher on Manning, but people forget, like, the sample size with Manning is so small right now that it's really hard for me to judge the kind of pitcher he's going to be. I see it with Skubal. I know it's been seldom when we've seen it. And for every really good start that he's had, he'll follow it up with a start like what he had yesterday, where you were watching him on the mound going, dude, what the hell are you thinking? What are you doing? First pitch fastballs, constant fastballs to a team that crushes left-handed pitching and a team that crushes fastball pitchers. Like I said, I've never met Scooby. I don't know his psyche at all. But just watching him on the mound, I get the impression that he's very anxious and very untrusting of his stuff. I think there's going to be a moment, the way that there was a moment with Scherzer and the way there was a moment with a lot of great pitchers in Major League Baseball. They can't all be guys like Walker Buehler who get called up right away and just find it. You know, it took Cole a while. Garrett Cole had a very good season in 2015 with the Pirates, but it wasn't really until he got to Houston when he took off. Now, there were reasons for that. Spider tack and the sticky stuff might have been a big reason for it, but still, he finished second for the Cy Young last year. He's doing pretty well for himself. It takes certain pitchers a while to find it. I do believe Skubal will find it, but the frustration is starting to kick in because all the predictions I've had for this team won't mean diddly poo if these young starters don't take another step forward in 2022. I think it's unreasonable to assume that they're all going to take some huge leap and go from so good to great, amazing. But I want to see steps forward. And I think what frustrated so many people about this most recent weekend is that Mize, in one start, guys, I can't stress that enough. It's one start. People complaining about this team right now, it's the equivalent of saying that your football team is going to go 0-17 when they go 3-and-out on the first drive of the first game. Like, you gotta taper off expectations and understand, you know, that there's a process here. They played a really good team and they lost to a really good team. But I do understand the frustrations with the pitchers because there is an expectation that they're going to take a step forward, and there's so much pressure on them. Microscope is on them. It's on Torkelson. It's got to be tough to be anointed as the guy when you're just trying to find a way to make it onto a major league roster and be successful. All right. I got to calm down a little bit here because as much as I'm trying to be the guy who's saying, hey, relax, 3 games in, it's early, I would be lying to you if after every loss I wasn't thinking to myself, please don't start like you did last year. Please don't be 6-24. I want to have fun this summer, and I want to watch a team that is like in relative contention. And I believe in the staff, and I believe in AJ, and I just want it for the fans. Like, my content will be fine because you know what people like more than seeing me happy? They like seeing me miserable. So whether or not this team is good or bad, my content will be fine. I'm not worried about that. You know, I'm in a good spot. But personally, I just want them to be good, and I know the fans want them to be really good. And when you watch a game like what you watched on Sunday, and when you watch really the last 2 games of that series, that thought does come into the back of your head of, what if this goes sideways? Now, I think a big reason for that is we are so predisposed to the idea that things are going to go poorly. We have not seen a good baseball team here in 6 years. 2016 was the last good team they had. 2014 was the last playoff team they had. So I think that there's a little bit of trauma there that we're just waiting for things to go wrong. And when you watch a game like Sunday, I do understand it. I also want to explain my stance on something. After the Tigers won on opening day, I put out the caption in my first video that said, "The rebuild just ended." And now with every loss, I'm getting tweets that are saying, what about the rebuild? Is it back on? No. What a rebuild consists of, at least in terms of the way the Tigers went about it, is multiple years of a team at the major league level openly tanking, openly trying to lose in order to get as much, high draft capital as you could possibly get, getting top 5 picks, trading away every single ounce of major league talent, with the exception of Matt Boyd for some reason, and refusing to spend money on big-time free agents. That part of the rebuild, that is the rebuild. That is over. That's done. I have question marks about this team too. I know a lot of people do. Only 3 baseball teams in the sport spent more money this offseason than the Tigers. That's not a rebuilding team. Like a prime example, the Mets last season. Steve Cohen was just throwing gobs of money at everyone. And they were in first place for a large majority of the season, ended up finishing below 500. What were they rebuilding? No. They had a bunch of injuries, which, of course, it's the Mets. They completely fell apart. They actually broke a major league record. I think the team with the most days in first place that ended up finishing below 500. There's a massive difference between just being bad and actively tanking / rebuilding. I'm not defending Illich and Avila here, but I do think that the idea that the rebuild's going to continue forever, or at least until they're good, I don't think that's the proper way to look at it. Now, jury's still out about whether or not the rebuild's going to be successful. If Eduardo Rodriguez puts up a 6 ERA this year and the team doesn't make the playoffs again for 5 more years, then yeah, we can look back at the rebuild and say it was a failure because the pieces you acquired during the tanking era didn't work out. So jury's still out about how successful it'll be, but that era, trust me, boy, oh boy, I've seen some shit with these eyeballs, all right? I watched some bad baseball for a long time. And of course, look, I was excited on opening day. They won. They won on a walk-off. They came back multiple times against Liam Hendricks, who's a stud all-star closer. So Castellani got a little amped and said, yeah, the rebuild's over. It's almost like I'm a fan or something. Whoop-de-doo. I don't know. I sound way more frustrated than I actually am. Like, it was an amazing day, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this team the rest of the season. I want optimism to return to Detroit so badly, and I want people to understand just how lengthy of a season this is. Y'all remember last year who the best team in baseball was through the month of April? It was the Kansas City Royals. People were talking the Royals, dude, they're going to fight for a playoff spot. Their rebuild is ahead of Detroit's. They got Perez and Soler and Merrifield and Brady Singer's coming along, and man, they got Carlos Santana. That was a pretty good deal. They got some boppers in that lineup, and man, they're 10 games over 500 at the end of April. I know how disappointing it would be to start this season the way they did last year. Now, I would be stunned if they do. I would be stunned if they're 6-24 or 5-17. I think AJ has too good of a feel for that clubhouse, and there is enough talent here to at least stay afloat for a while. And I get that it is very hard to preach patience when we haven't watched a good, like objectively good baseball team in Detroit for 6 years. And there will come a moment this season. It could be in April, could be in May, June, July, I don't know, in which I will come on here and say, yeah, they just don't have it. This team just doesn't have it. Now, I said it last year in April, and they ended up surprising me. but that's because expectations were gone. It was just AJ took a team that probably should have won 60, 65 games, and they won 77. Expectations are different now. If this team wins 77 games, I will not view it as a success. Last year, I was dancing on tables every time they won a game, where they would go on the road and sweep the Astros or win 2 out of 3 at home against the White Sox or Brewers. Not giving them little pats on the head anymore. I want to see some consistency. I think the roster is good enough for us at some point to have that consistency, but the pitching has to find it. Skubal's got to be better. Mize has to be better. And, Erod wasn't very good either. I mean, I didn't even bring him up. I think he was nibbling a bit. I think he'll ultimately be good. I do like that signing. It's so early in the game. You could tell how much I'm looking forward to baseball and have been looking forward to Tigers baseball, that we're getting this passionate of a segment 3 games into the season. All right, well, that will do it for today's show. I do have something coming, and by the time this gets uploaded, I might already have it in my possession. I don't know. My producer, Matt Henkel, did an unbelievable job of filming at Comerica Park with me and my buddy Anthony Broom on opening day. That'll be up soon. I might even post a little preview of it on Twitter at some point, but be on the lookout. I'll be posting that to my YouTube channel, unrelated to this show. It's just a little fun vlog that I felt like posting, and Matt did an awesome job. I think he got some really funny, really interesting footage. I think my reaction to Javi's walk-off on opening day is something that's going to make a lot of people, hopefully make people happy, because, that's the goal here, right? But that'll do it for today's show. You can follow me on Twitter at Castellani2014. While you're at it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get those watch hours up. Also, you can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify. I had people going, what about Google Podcasts? What about Google Podcasts? This is where Castellani, okay, real quick. I got to stop doing the third person thing. I'm not a rapper. This is where I am really bad. I didn't know there wasn't a Google Podcasts. I thought there was just like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, like Spotify. What's Google? Is that like Google Plus? Remember Google Plus? That was a big deal. We'll work on it. That's all I can say. But it is available on multiple other podcasting platforms and in audio only version, so you don't have to look at my ugly mug all the time. So that'll do it. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We will be right back here on Friday with another show. Have a good one. Peace and happiness.